going to regret this.
Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Nick Anastasiou, story editor on Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Bad Batch. And you are listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
Here you are, back with Aggressive Negotiations, and here we are to bring you another episode of it. I am one of your humble hosts, Jedi Master John Mills. With me, as always, embarking on this beautiful journey is my dear friend, Jedi Master Matthew Rushing. Matt, we are here to discuss a variety of topics tonight. There will be one in particular, but also a nice little surprise for the fans. Are you buckled up? Is your hyperspace acceleration chair all set?
John, I'm so excited that people have chosen to join us here on Aggressive Negotiations Variety Hour, and I am just one of the hosts, and I'm so glad to be here. Of course, this is my Variety Hour accent, and we're so glad that you have chosen to join us.
I would have personally gone with something a little more Bob Barker, but you do you. That's fine. That's fine. I can only imagine what a Jedi in disguise after Order 66 doing game shows to win the money. Okay, that's a series. There you go, Lucasfilm. Another pitch for a story
idea. Using the Force to win money on Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, exactly right. Every time he spins, it lands on the $5,000 thing. And it's like, oh, hey, I don't know. I'm just really lucky tonight.
That's not iffy at all.
Yeah. All right. And and then he's, I'm going to guess the letter. And then he's reaching out with his mind to pull it out of the producer's head. And he's like, give me 3 R's if you would. How did you know it would be 3? Just a lucky guess. Yeah, something like that. You know it could be done, and you know it would be a great sitcom. Maybe a one season, but a really funny one. And then, of course, at the end, as he's discovered, Vader kills him and takes the prizes and uses that to build his castle. There you go. Now we've gone into the drama. And speaking of drama, it's dramatic for me. It's dramatic for Matt. When we get new ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcatcher of choice that you have, help other people find the show. Help us, help you, help us, help them to find the show. And just give us a star rating and review, please, please. But we also have a special thrill this week, Matt. We got feedback directly from a listener. This listener is in the wilds of an upstate that, experiences weather changes that I don't. And he goes by the code name Old Joe. And he listened to our discussion recently about the world between worlds and that galaxy even farther away in Ahsoka Season 1. His question, and he posed it to both of us, but I'll pose it to you, was, do you think it's possible that the two galaxies were actually closer together than they are now at some point in the past? And it's not as distant past as we think. And that is the origin of the Night Sisters and the Mortis gods, and the world between worlds was the way that they found, or even the Purgle were the way that they found to get back to this other galaxy that they were used to going to.
I mean, that's an interesting question, because as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, we know that the Clone Wars were actually going to touch the Yuuzhan Vong if they had continued, and those characters were always ones that came from outside the universe we know. And so that's a question that also made me wonder about, had they left that universe that we see in Ahsoka, and they didn't have light speed, and they just were traveling on these very slow ships, relatively speaking, and these big world ships, and so that's a whole other question. But so, yeah, I mean, the idea that this is a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We know that, the Star Wars universe, we're talking existence of thousands of years, 10,000s of years. It's been around for a long period of time. And so the idea that there could have been a universal drift from one universe to the next, I think makes complete sense. And it would have been really interesting in the sense that you could have maybe gotten there because they were closer much easier previously. And then as the drift has happened, it got more and more difficult, which is, one of the reasons why the Dathomiri witches end up there in the first place. And maybe they just got stranded, because they didn't maybe know about Purgle or something like that. There's just all of these really incredible stories that I think that could go into explaining all of these different facets about these two universes and how they are connected.
Yeah, and the thing is, as you're brainstorming there, I'm thinking of different things where the Yuuzhan Vong are from that galaxy, and they were on the way. They're on the way over here or over to the Skywalker galaxy, and their ships, to your idea of being world ships, they're sleeper ships. They know it's going to take a long time, so they go to sleep. And so it's almost like that. I think it's Joe Haldeman wrote the book, The Forever War, where by the time you get to where you're going, the war's already over or the enemy has changed, sort of thing. So that could even be a very interesting thing. And it's the type of thing where it's like I could see this sort of thing being pitched and developed in a Lucasfilm story room. But that leads into sort of the core question for this episode. As look, 2025 is starting to wind down. We know we have a project that's coming out in 2026. We know that there's one in 2027. Star Wars is coming back to theaters. We know that we're going to get a 50th anniversary re-release in IMAX, no less. I mean, that movie's going to make money hand over fist, especially some of the other rumors are true, but we'll leave that to the side. And we have Ahsoka Season 2. So it seems like there are some things that are in development, and we got Maul Shadow Lord on the way too,
and Starfighter, which they're filming right now.
Right,
so they're actually filming it. So
but that's the thing is like we have all of these great, neat, innovative, mind expansive projects that are coming out there, but everybody still has this perception of Star Wars as a franchise struggling right now. Look, let's just embrace why. It's because of this story that broke about the hunt for Ben Solo. So basically, as we go into 2026, is it possible that we're looking at Lucasfilm taking another shot at redefining itself as that innovative, story-focused studio for its core franchise that it's known for, continuing to work against what I would call corporate structure that only sees things in terms of sequential storytelling, merchandising rights, streaming capabilities, and those sorts of things, the stuff that sort of strips away the heart of what made us fall in love with it?
I mean, this is just a really interesting question because, as recently just came out in the theaters was Tron Ares. And one of the things and the research I did to talk about that film on the 602 Club came across some information that the reason that the Joseph Kosinski sequel to that never happened, that was supposed to happen, that he was working on, was because Disney had the returns for Tomorrowland and decided, no, we're not doing another one of these films because of what they got back for Tomorrowland. And I think that ever since the debacle that was Solo, and when I say that, it's not, I'm not slighting the film. We
both love the film.
Exactly.
We both love the film.
This is not about that. This is about the botched behind-the-scenes travesty that happened from beginning to end on that film, and continued, of course, with the terrible promotion of that film, everything about how they handled that whole thing was awful. The fact that movie turns out to be fantastic is just it thank the force,
testament
right?
to Ron Howard.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Apparently, the Howards should just be making more Star Wars things, because
no objections.
Does just as good as father, and so. What I'm trying to get at, though, is there seems to be a culture of fear that's happening in the Disney Corporation. It's not even Lucasfilm itself. It's the Disney corporate structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they
Exactly.
seem to be terrified at this point to make anything that's not going to make tons of money, right? And so the only thing that they seem to care about these days is remaking perfect animated features into less perfect other animated features, because they feel like they can make bukus of money on that unless it's Snow White. And
Well,
so, and that,
yeah, that's a whole story in and of
look,
itself, right?
but the
So,
point is that we've gone from being a studio that is trying to be inventive in any way to be a studio that's driven by fear of not making enough dollars back. And when you're not willing to take any kind of creative risk, or you're not just willing to realize, I don't have to spend $300 million on every single movie. If I have the right person behind the film and they have $100 million, they could make an incredible film and we could make back what we put into it and more, And so
yeah.
it just feels like this will be a weird analogy. I'm watching as we're recording this, the Blue Jays and the Dodgers are in the World Series, and the other night the game went into the 18th inning, right? And it didn't end before the end of the 18th inning when we got a walk-off home run from Freddie Freeman for the Dodgers. Why does that happen? Because once you get into the extra innings in a World Series game, guys stop playing and swinging the way they had been swinging the rest of the game. Now you're only swinging for the fences. And that changes the game because you just get a lot of pop-ups. That's what's happening, I think, with Disney as a creative force. They're always swinging for the fences in the sense, we're going to spend $500 million making this movie, but now we need to make $1.5 billion for it to be successful. And you're just creating your own monster that you can never overcome or beat. It's like the question, can God make a rock so big that he can't pick it up? Well, Disney has made a problem so big it can't fix it with more money. And so I think that's really one of the places that we might be coming down to in the structure. What do you think?
Okay. Well, no, I got a couple of things here. One great analogy, and I'll tack on to that. It's because they're trying to win with one big swing because they're no longer playing to win. They're playing not to lose.
Oh,
and that's a totally different way to
point.
go.
Yes.
Totally different way to go.
Yes.
And I think with this corporatism that you're talking about as well with it, is the problem with the corporate structure is that Lucasfilm is now part of a larger whole, like any other big corporation or any other big studio. I'm not curb stomping Disney in particular with this comment, okay? I'm coming at it from the perspective that the larger corporations, no matter what, the people at the top, upper management, their paycheck clears no matter what.
Right.
Whereas when Lucasfilm was its own independent studio, Lucas was literally running it. I mean, it was almost just like a nonprofit corporation.
Yeah.
Because everything that was made was sunk back into the company to make it larger, to make it grow, to make it more stable. And I think that what we're witnessing as Star Wars fans, because we have such a vested interest in it emotionally, is it's something that's happening everywhere, but we're only seeing it here because we're only looking here.
Right.
And every company that gets larger, all that they can look at is that bottom line, that ruthless look at it. I mean, as we have this discussion, there are headlines breaking because, company A's profits are down by 1%. They're going to axe tens of thousands of people. And it's like, well, wait, who actually made the bad decisions to cost this?
Right.
Get rid of those jabronis. Like that's the whole thing. That's the thing that I think, and I think that's the movie studios in general now, because they're not studios anymore. They're corporations.
Mm-hmm.
They're not actually movie studios anymore. Disney's not a movie studio anymore. They're not Disney was
Yeah, they're
like
just a
Lucasfilm when it
multinational
first came about.
corporation. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so you can have, I think the disheartening thing right now, I'll throw this to you, right, is you have the Hunt for Ben Solo come up. It gets greenlit. It crosses every hurdle that we've been told is necessary to cross. The head of story is okay. The head of story is more than okay with it. There's a final script that's been done. They're ready to order people. They have one of the most esteemed directors in Hollywood history attached to it. They have a huge star whose name draws people in. Even non-Star Wars fans love the dude.
Yep.
And the head of Lucasfilm is like, yep, this is it. Look at all of this stuff. We did all the work. We are ready to go. And then it's that mystical, it's like the final boss in a video game suddenly shows up and you're like, well, no. I'm hitting AB at the same time. What's going on? And it's like you're doing everything right, but you still lose the game. Like, how can fans not look at that and be like, man, what a bunch of bull? Like, how can that not take the wind out of your sails to see that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I find this to be really interesting to me. And the most fascinating part about this is that the whole aspect of, and I think, look, I don't want to throw, tons of shade, right? But I think that this really kind of comes down to the fact that it's very clear what happened with the sequel trilogy and why I think they have struggled so mightily on how to follow it up is because of the disjointed nature of the storytelling from start to finish in the series. And, so this isn't about whether or not you liked certain aspects of it, or if you liked The Last Jedi or not, or if you liked The Force Awakens or not. I mean, this isn't about that. But I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks to themselves, man, that was just one internally consistent trilogy. I mean, there's just nothing about that trilogy that I have a problem with or doesn't not make sense, And so I think one of the issues that we run into with it is that we're at a place where they don't know how to follow it up and where to follow it up because there wasn't kind of like a clear vision in the series itself as to where it was going.
I think it's a yes, no. I'll go all the way back to your baseball analogy, right? And the playing not to lose sort of thing. I honestly think, because I'm reconstructing it in my brain, the turn against Marvel hadn't happened yet. And I think that the sting of what happened with the way Solo suffered for the way fans really felt about The Last Jedi, and the general public in general felt about it. Let's be honest, guys. I think that it's almost like an emotional damage thing where the same people are at the head of Disney, by and large, and they've never understood how to process it. They don't know what went wrong because they don't understand. They literally look at it as product. It's like when, it's basically like suddenly people don't like Oreos anymore, and the people making Oreos are like, well, wait, no, it's still Oreos. We're still selling Oreos. But what they don't realize is they changed some minor ingredient in the double stuff or something, like the cream in the center, and people tasted it and they were like, the Oreos don't taste the same anymore. They're fine, but I don't like them as much. But to the people up at the top of the chain, they're like, but it's still Oreos. It tastes the same to me. And it's like, does that make sense to you? Like, and I think Marvel's going through the same thing. They don't understand what went wrong. They're almost like they're incapable of understanding what misfired. And so it's making them afraid to do anything bold or continue to take risks.
Yeah, no, I think that's really an astute observation as to what the problem is. And I think it is crazy to me that you had a script that Dave Filoni liked, Kathleen Kennedy liked, everybody seemed to be on board with. And then it was Iger who says no. And why he said no, we don't even have a clue as to why he would say no to this. But it has to come down to
wasn't one of the
a money
rumors, like,
issue, right?
No, wasn't one of the. I swear I read an article where the reasoning given was that the feedback was, well, he's dead. How could this happen? Like, they couldn't understand how you could tell a story about him, which I think even shows that they struggled even with the idea of. I wonder if they even understood that Rogue One and Solo were prequels. Like, I do. I think, is it possible that they just didn't understand the idea of non-sequential storytelling? It's almost like, well, look, we can't fix it. Obviously, you and me, nobody listening can fix it. And it's one of those things, though, where I want to look at 2026 with hopeful eyes. I want to say there's hope on the horizon, that the seas will calm and things will hit a regular cadence. The simple fact that we know for certain 2 more movies are coming out in the next 2 years, and we're going to get a season of a show. And Maul Shadow Lord, the one that I'm most excited for, of all 4 of them, in God's honest truth, that's the one I am the most excited for. We have 4 solid projects we know that are queued up. My question to you is, going into 2026, all of these projects, you throw them at me, I'm hopeful. I'm like, okay, these all actually sound pretty solid. I'm actually kind of digging what they're putting out there. How do we remove the mental hurdle for ourselves as fans to go into 2026 clean?
Mm-hmm.
To drop the baggage and say, you know what? I can't hold on to that. Let's move forward. Just the same way that George Lucas was trying to teach us with his 6 films.
Look, I think one of the ways that we do that is maybe we should be thankful that at least one of the lessons that we learned, they seem to have learned at Lucasfilm with Star Wars, stop making things so quickly that you can't actually think about anything.
Yes.
Stop making things so quickly that we don't have an opportunity to sit back and make sure, do we really need to make this? Is this important to the saga? Does it add anything to the storyline? Does it really give us what we're looking for with Star Wars to make it special, right? And so in that, I think if we're going to talk about what we should be thankful for, and what we should be grateful for, which we've got a big episode coming up soon called Thanks Gungan, where we'll talk a lot about this. I love that annual tradition. But I think you're right, and absolutely talking about this idea. We should be grateful. We should be looking forward to what's coming out. We should be hopeful because none of these things have been rushed.
Mm-hmm.
Maul Shadow Lord, not rushed. Ahsoka Season 2, not rushed. In fact, we've if you've read articles about it, they have put so much time and effort into that series. They worked on the cinematography to make it even more epic. You know, they're filming over in England, which, you know, we know how that turned out for Andor and Rogue One.
Yeah.
Grogu and Mando, they have had a long time to work on the effects, right? They haven't been rushing that. So much of the stuff that we complained about with things in Star Wars was because things were rushed. Because we felt we had this inclination that we just had to get things out there. And we had to do it now because we had to strike while the iron is hot, instead of making sure that the things that we were actually giving folks was what they didn't know they always wanted, and also always needed in Star Wars, right? And so I think that's the type of thing that, again, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we should be hopeful coming forward, because there are some lessons, I think, that they had to learn the hard way. And those aren't being repeated right now. And that's great.
And so I think maybe, just maybe, we're looking forward to 2026 being a new hope for Star Wars. I did it, guys. I got us there. I made the reference that we were all thinking in our heads. But what the rest of us are thinking in our heads, Matt, to follow up on a point that you were saying, was the only rushing we want to hear about is Matt rushing. So where can people find you online?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but nobody thought that. But anyway, you can find me all over social media under the name MattRushing02. Of course, I'm here on the network with Outpost, a whole podcast about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series, one chapter at a time. You can also find me on the TFM network with a bunch of shows. One's called the 602 Club, where we're talking about all of the franchises that we love outside of Star Trek. And there's a lot of great Star Trek talk over there. So check all of those out. But John, if people wanted to see what you're doing for spooky season, because I know you're such a huge fan of spooky season, where can people find you?
Well, so far as I'm concerned, spooky season goes just about up to Thanksgiving, because gosh darn it, if you can start selling Christmas stuff before Halloween, I can celebrate Halloween all the way up until Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And that's how I do it in my house, young man. And you can find me online as Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE. I have a lot of fun over on Letterboxd because, gosh, I can only talk about movies there. Can't possibly get myself in trouble. That's pretty cool. And of course, you can find me here on the network co-hosting a show regularly called House Lights with Darren Moser and Tristan Riddell, where we look at the work of directors. And we are finally, as of the recording of this, talking about one of my favorite directors, Catherine Bigelow. And I'm so overjoyed about it because that is a director that I've been wanting to talk about her work since probably the inception of that show that's been going on for a long time. So, and honestly, hey, since we're pitching so many ideas out here to Lucasfilm lately, hey, Lucasfilm, bring in Catherine Bigelow to direct a Star Wars feature. I'd be so overjoyed if you did. It would be the best in the world. But speaking of the best in the world, I have the best Wheel of Cheese looking chairs back at my room at the Jedi Temple. So let's go take a load off Master Rushing, and I think it's time to close these negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.